This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created to listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Kasim, who is a serial entrepreneur who has built multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses, including 2 successful exits. He is the co-founder of Driven Mastermind, creator of Digital Marketers Paid Traffic Certification, and author of 3 best-selling books, including You versus Google. He's a #1 international bestseller in marketing and advertising. Named one of the top 50 digital marketing thought leaders in the U.S., Kasim is also the founder of Pareto Talent. Did I say that right?
Pareto.
Pareto Talent, a company dedicated to helping entrepreneurs reclaim their time by matching them with world-class executive assistants. His work is grounded in insights gained as the founder of Solutions 8, one of the world's top Google Ads agencies. So, Kasim, welcome to the program today. Great to have you on.
Steve, thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
So give us a little context here, to start with, kind of tell us where you grew up, a little bit of your past experience and how you ended up where you are now.
Yeah, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is the armpit of America. Never go. There's a reason they chose New Mexico for nuclear testing, and it's because they knew that there was nothing there to ruin.
Oh
Uh,
my.
I'm a welfare baby. My little brother and I were raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability, which sounds like a sob story, and it's not at all. The way I look at it, Steve, is I'm actually a trust fund baby because I live in this great country that got together and all decided, hey, we're actually going to feed these kids and see if they can amount to something.
Yeah.
So super grateful for a lot of the opportunities I was given. I like to call myself the world's greatest failure because I failed at everything twice. And I'm just autistic enough that failure doesn't hit my ego. I just take it as data. And
Okay.
I've had a pretty good run of it lately. You know, I've had a bumpy road. You go far enough back, but recently I feel a little like Midas, Steve. I'm doing okay.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it. So, when you talk about some of the failures that you had, I understand that you actually went bankrupt once when you were got a business and didn't work, and you were just trying to make it.
Yeah, the banking collapse of '08. I didn't technically declare bankruptcy, but I lost everything. I was building banking software. I was actually building banking software for the largest privately held bank in the country, which was shut down by the FDIC when, the Lehman Brothers thing happened. They were
Right.
the,
Right.
the the lead domino in the Lehman Brothers collapse. I lost my home. I lost my car. I ended up living in an apartment building that I only got into because they gave you 3 months free if you signed an 18-month lease. And then I'd
Okay.
go to Costco on this expired Costco card I'd stolen from my dad. And I'd walk around on the weekends eating the free food. And that's more or less, if I was lucky, I had a buck 50 and I'd buy that hot dog. But like I was just putting in perspective, I was all the way rock bottom, trying to figure out how to borrow from Peter and pay Paul and rub 2 nickels together and whatever the analogies are. It was so hard, and it was the most important thing that's ever happened to me entrepreneurially. Because I was 20 years old when I started my business and I started making money, more money than you should give a poor kid, right? Because they don't teach poor people how to use money. So I bought the house on the hill and the idiot's car, and I'm always picking up the check, and I'm getting expensive haircuts and just doing obnoxious things. And by 22, foreclosure, repossession, absolute worthlessness, technically speaking, and I'm supremely unemployable. I have no degree, no skills, no trade, no nothing. And it taught me so much about business and more specifically the lifeblood of business, which is liquidity. So I'm grateful for the lesson, even though it was hurtful.
So now you're an entrepreneur. You've started several companies, sold some companies. So I just hear that story and I think, gosh, what gave you the will to continue on? Was it just being naive and jumping in, or did you just have the strong will? Maybe given to you by your mother.
Man, I'd love to pretend like I, played Spartan and strapped my shield on my back and ran to war, but really I sat in of a bathtub of gasoline lighting matches. I was really depressed for a couple of years. Um, And it was just desperation. I think desperation can be really potent and really powerful. I tried to just get a job. I was going to throw in the towel and say I'm done. I remember I applied for a dock worker at Target. There was a Target right behind me, and I went to Target and I applied for this warehouse position. You get there at 3 a.m. and you unload the truck. And I was unqualified to be a dock worker at Target. You know, like
Okay.
Target didn't want, and that's when I knew. I was like, I have to figure something out. I have to hustle. And you know, if you're from Albuquerque, you're probably pretty good at hustling. I got into some trouble as a kid, and so I've always been pretty creative when it comes to, uh, we'll call it, Steve, creative monetization, which isn't something I'm proud of, and it was also significant levels of learning. So I started trolling Craigslist for like digital handyman stuff. You know, fix my computer, fix my website. How do I create this thing? And I was okay, technically minded, and I was able to kind of eke out a living and then slowly just build up something from there.
And so when did you start your first business then, and how did you come to that decision?
I started my first business at 19 years old. It was called KPO Global. I wanted to be an actor, and so I wanted something I could do from anywhere. Because when you're an actor, you're on set, and the joke is hurry up and wait,
Yeah.
and you never know when they're going to need you. And so I needed work that could be done independent of time. And I had some cousins in Pakistan. I've never been to Pakistan, but they claimed to be technically proficient themselves. You know, like, oh, we can do web, we can do software, we can do graphic design. And they lied through their teeth, Steve. Like, they can't do any of that stuff. But I didn't know that at
Okay.
the time. So I would go sell the client, pitch it over to them, make some money in the middle. And interestingly, that actually worked okay. And
Hmm.
I honestly, it was just right place, right time. I started to get some legitimate work, most of which I lucked into. And my great big contract came from First National Bank, the bank that I mentioned. I ended up having this, what for me at the time, I realize now is probably pretty small for most people, but for me at the time it was massive. It was this development deal helping bridge their multifunction printers and update some of their software. Um, and that's when they started cutting me these five-figure checks. And I'm a kid, that's never seen money like that. And so I started spending those checks, Steve, with great
Yeah.
fervor. And then the thing that happens when you spend money, it's great. What a beautiful financial system we have is people give you credit, and credit
Yeah.
spends even easier than money does. And so, man, did I just reach with both hands and learn that lesson the hard way, I'm sorry to say.
It's interesting. I've always said is that the people that don't need money, it's easy to get money.
Yeah,
The people that need money can't get money. It's kind of like there's something wrong with that system. But anyway, it's true. I hear what you're saying. So when you start a business, and you've done it several times, so what do you think is the most important thing? I mean, it seems like a silly question, but I just
no, it's a
curious
great
to what you
question.
think. So what's the most important thing when you start a business?
Traffic, traffic.
Okay, and
I'm a traffic
tell me
guy.
what. Okay, tell me what traffic means.
So everybody, we teach young entrepreneurs to be obsessed with the idea. You need the great idea, the big idea. What are you going to change? What are you going to innovate? And that doesn't matter at all. As a matter of fact, the big idea is probably going to fail. Pioneers get shot, settlers prosper. Google wasn't the first. Apple wasn't the first. Anything. Apple wasn't the first personal computer, smartphone, tablet, MP3 player. The first at anything pays all the R&D costs, makes all the mistakes, and then probably gets usurped. So the idea is
Hmm.
irrelevant. And I really mean that. I'm going to be bullish on that, Steve. I think the idea is irrelevant. I think the thing to pay attention to, the most expensive form of the most expensive facet of business is traffic, attention, eyeballs, phone calls, leads. And I know that because I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. And I got to watch thousands of businesses. We had $100 million in ad spend under management when I sold my business. I got to watch thousands of businesses over time spending money. And here's what I found. Let's say that you're an e-commerce store seller and you're selling a bottle of water, right? Or a bottle, like one of those fancy bottles that people carry around. Like if you're listening, you can't see this, but I'm holding up this, I don't know what it is, a 40-ounce bottle that probably costs $25 retail on Amazon.
Yeah.
If you're an e-commerce reseller selling this bottle, you're going to pay $5 cost of goods, $5 for fulfillment, $5 for OpEx, right? Keeping the lights on, and you're going to pay $9 for traffic and you're going to make a buck. Maybe. Maybe you make a buck and maybe you don't even make money anymore. Maybe you're banking on long-term, LTV, the lifetime value of a client. The interesting thing about that breakdown that I just offered is traffic is your most expensive cost by far. For many businesses, traffic actually exceeds the cost of all those other things combined. So when you can't solve for traffic, it's like being in a batting cage and not getting at bats. Business is iterative. Business is an iterative process where you improve over time. And the more opportunities you have to improve, the better you get. Well, imagine you're in a batting cage and you have to run out and you have to talk somebody into throwing one pitch at you. And you finally get, because how many doors would you have to knock on to talk somebody into coming and throwing a pitch at you? And they come
Yeah.
and they throw your pitch and you bat and hit or miss, doesn't matter. That person's gone. And now you have to go and you have to run out into the ether and find another person to throw a pitch at you, as opposed
Hmm.
to the person that gets to sit there and just keep swinging, 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 swing, because they have that auto pitcher thing, whatever those are called in batting cages. And that's the analogy for traffic. Go to where the traffic exists. And traffic generally looks like pain. It looks like people complaining, people that are upset, it looks like problems. But if you can find traffic, then you can make just about any business work. And I think that, and I'm going to be more bullish about this, if you look at most businesses right now, the advertising mechanisms that those businesses use make more money on those businesses than the businesses themselves. So for example, Google, if your primary acquisition channel is Google Ads, Google makes more money net than you do. Isn't that weird? You work for Google. If your primary acquisition channel is Meta, Meta makes more money net than you do. After you consider all of your costs, all of your overhead, all of everything, Meta, especially on that initial acquisition, and that's true, even let's take the digital sphere out of it. If you have outbound salespeople, cold calling, door knockers, bandit signs, direct mail, the advertising of a business, the traffic, the awareness costs you more than any other facet of the business. So, what if you solve for traffic first? And that's why I've been successful, Steve. I've built 6 multi-million-dollar businesses. I've had 2 exits, one for 8 figures. And all I do, and I don't know why this is novel, I solve for traffic first. I don't care what the business is. It doesn't have to be inspiring. I don't have to like it. I don't have to know anything about it. I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I've never run a Google campaign myself in my life end to end. I think that people need to stop focusing on what they're good at and what the idea is, and they need to start focusing on where the opportunity is and where the traffic is.
Yeah, so interesting. So I can see how that, as my mind here is listening to you talk, I can see how that would work if you're selling a product like the water bottle example you gave. But how do you do that? How do you get traffic for like a service industry, like healthcare or financial services or something like that? Same,
You're doing it
same,
now.
same plan,
Yeah,
same
well,
deal.
so here's what's interesting is traffic comes from authority, especially in the digital sphere. So like this podcast that you're producing, this is a traffic play. A YouTube channel is a traffic play. Social media profile is a traffic play. I think the most potent traffic play you could ever make in any business, and I can't think of an exception where this wouldn't work, is a community. If you can
Hmm.
invest in a digital community, now you don't even have to own that community, by the way, but let's say for a moment that you help people, you help people with therapy clinics, right? So you own the therapeutic association and you want to help
Hmm.
therapists. You begin serving, joining and serving those communities, those masterminds, those networks, those incubators. Wherever those people exist, you go, you give first, you give last, you give more, meaning you give epic amounts of value. And what happens in life is just the law of reciprocity. People's like, man, that's Steve. What a good dude. Wonder what he does. Like, how can I engage with him further? So I'd go to where communities exist. And when you're in the community, don't come out swinging. Because what most vendors do is they join the community and they're like, hey, I do cold calling for therapists. Well, I don't need cold calling. Maybe I need billing. I can't figure out the medical billing piece of this, and that's really hard. Or, maybe I need staffing and HR and hiring. Join a community and listen. Listen and be attentive. And anytime you hear anybody complain, anytime you hear anybody trouble, anytime you hear anybody who's actually has a problem that they need solved, that's the opportunity. And if you hear it 2 or 3 or 4 times, maybe that's worth niching down into.
So help us that those of us that maybe don't like when you say community, tell us what that actually looks like. Are you talking about, you know, um, a certain community on LinkedIn where, like-minded people come together and form an own community? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir. It's biblical. I think Jesus said, where any two people meet, you now have a church, right? So where any two or more people meet on a specific topic, you now have a community around that topic. So if you and your buddies go to a pub every Thursday night and talk about surfing, like it or not, you've got a surfing community. And it's at Steve's Pub. And at Steve's Pub every Thursday night, if somebody really wanted to get in with surfers and learn what surfers wanted and what they needed and what they could be sold, they show up to Steve's Pub. And now the benefit we have is the digital world has scaled that, right? Steve's Pub has 4 or 5 or 6 dudes that show up, a dozen at max if it's a big pub. Or you get to go to a Facebook group, a LinkedIn group, a YouTube channel, a podcast, and now we have hundreds, if not thousands of people. And I'd caution listeners against the fallacy of digital metrics. It bugs me to no end when I hear people say, "Oh man, that video only got 8 views."
Yeah.
It's 8 people. It's 8 humans. It's 8 souls. That's 8 wallets and bank accounts if you want to sterilize it like that. Like that's what, think about 8 people in a room. How many salespeople would kill to have the opportunity to make a potent and elongated pitch to 8 real people? And 8 is low. I mean, most of these videos, if you post a video on YouTube, it's hard not to get 30, 40, 50 views. So it's not about quantity, it's about quality. I sold the Google Ads agency on the heels of a YouTube channel. That was my community. I had the top ranked YouTube channel for Google Ads. It had less than 30,000 subscribers when we sold, which in YouTube, adjusted for margin of error, is zero, right? Anything under 100,000 doesn't exist, and anything under a million isn't worth anything. I built an 8-figure business off of a 30,000 subscriber YouTube channel. And all I did is I shot one video every single day with a give. Give, 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 give. And it took me about 2 years. For 2 years, it was crickets, nothing, goose egg, zero. And then at 2 years in a day, all of a sudden I started getting people saying, "Man, I've been watching your videos for a year and a half and I'm ready to hire you." And it wasn't even a sales conversation. It was a, "Do you have place for me? Where do I sign?" And more interesting than the clients, and what really made us the best, were the employees. People came to me through my channel, young men especially, and young men and women in overseas, that learned everything they knew from us, and they're like, "We want to work for you. You're the aspiration." They took pay cuts to come work for us because they knew that we were the best. And those two things
Mm.
combined, me solving for traffic and me solving for talent acquisition, I was able to piece those together. And it's like, gosh, I have everybody who knows how to do the job coming to me, everybody who wants the job coming to me. All I'm doing is playing matchmaker. And it was beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, that's just so basically what you're saying is when you join one of these communities or become a part of it, the worst thing you could do is come in and try and sell what you're selling. You want to sit back and listen and give things without expectations of getting anything back right
That's
away.
exactly right. And the law of
Yeah.
reciprocity says that it's never a one for one. It's never, I gave Steve a flower and Steve gave me a donut. It's, I gave Steve a flower. Steve told John how great I was. John mentioned me to Mary, and Mary called her sister and said, "Hey, I know this guy who knows how to do whatever it ends up being." Like, it's going to come in weird ways and over a protracted period of time. The mistake that all businesses make, dude, I ran traffic for publicly traded companies, and they were idiotic in how they looked at their data. Their question, if let's say it's May right now, right? It's May 6th, so we're going to be looking at April's numbers. If we're looking at April's numbers, their question was, how much money did we spend in April and how much money did we make in April? And then they would correlate those two numbers. Publicly traded companies with C-level execs from,
Mhm.
Goldman Sachs and Ivy League educations. And I'm like, in what world do customers line up in a row and in 30-day epochs see an ad and buy your thing? When has that ever happened in the history of any commercial interaction or an engagement for you or anybody else, anecdotally or data driven in any way? There's no such thing. Buying cycles for gum and candy bars are longer than 30, 60, 90. It takes time. It takes time to love on people and invest and really build a brand and a culture. And so what you need to do is you need to see the inflection points. I knew with YouTube, it took about 6 to 9 months before somebody started watching to when they would buy. And the reason I knew that is because I'd go back and I'd look at the comments. So I'd be like, "Oh, Steve hired me in May. That's weird because his first comment was in October." And who knows how long they were watching before they started commenting, right? There's no way for me to
Yeah.
test that. But that level of attribution is near impossible for us to track. And so what do? We're like, "Oh, we spent this in April. What do we make in April?" Well, ding dong. There's no way for those two numbers to correlate at all. If you spent this in April, the question might be, what are we going to make in 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months, depending on how long your sales cycle is?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. A past guest on this program, what his business was he's an entrepreneur himself, and then he just put together these entrepreneurial dinners where people that had started companies or sold companies would just get together and really no expectation other than get to know each other, and then it grew and it grew and it grew to the point where now people coming together, it was like you said, it's just so that when I'm sitting next to you and having conversation and I say, I've got this problem I don't know how to solve, and then you say, "Oh, I got a guy for that."
Yep.
I know a guy who does that, and you should talk to this guy, you should talk to that guy, and it's just a form of networking where, again, there's no expectation coming in to sell anything. It's just talking and getting to know people, and somebody's probably got a solution to your issue.
Yeah, the answer is in the room is something we say in our mastermind all the time. The answer is
Yeah.
in the room. If you have a problem, the answer is in the room, or you're in the wrong room.
So you have a business. I'm just looking back here on the intro here with mastermind in the name, right?
Yeah, Driven. I own
Okay,
a mastermind with Perry Belcher and Jason Fladlin.
so tell me about that business, and I understand the mastermind concept, but tell me what that business does and how it works.
Yeah, people pay 35 grand a year. It might be bumped up to 40 here pretty soon. We'll see. And we meet once a quarter and we just get together and we share best practices. And the real brains behind the operation is Perry Belcher. He's the godfather of digital marketing. He invented the term digital marketer, like really brilliant guy. Jason Fladlin, the greatest pitchman who's ever lived, and then a whole host of faculty members. And so we put some of the smartest people we know in a room, and we just talk about what's working now, what tools are working, what endeavors are working, what business channels we see working, what's not working, what's breaking down. It's not an accountability group. If you need accountability, go hire a babysitter. That's not what we're here for. It's really just fire hoses of information and a lot of tools. And we equip entrepreneurs. You have to have $1 million business to join, and people show up, they learn, they juice their business, and then we meet digitally every Wednesday for 90 minutes just to do a check-in and kind of a roundup and sharpen this the or soften the sharp edges.
Yeah, interesting. And so how many people are doing this?
We have 100 members. Every membership includes 2 seats, so it would be you and a partner or you and a strong number two. We don't allow children. A lot of people want to bring their kid. It just doesn't work because there's too many collaborative exercises, and it's like, dude, junior's going to make this hard on everybody. We also don't
Yeah.
allow like VAs and EAs or spouses. It's like you and somebody who actually knows what the hell's going on in your business. If you and your wife are business partners, great. But if she's just along for the cocktails, then let's not waste
Yeah.
anybody's time.
That's really interesting. And so they just basically you're just getting information, and you can listen and take what you want and not listen to what you don't want, and just sharing ideas.
That's exactly, yeah. And we've had some of the greatest thought leaders in the world. I mean, we've had 2 billionaires on our stage, more centimillionaires than I can count. One of the best M&A guys in the world. I'll try not to name drop, but like a lot of
Yeah.
it is just it's just a brain trust. Um,
And so how do you manage, with that price tag getting in and those accolades that you just mentioned of people in the group? How do you deal with the egos? How do you deal with the people that are they just they check it at the door, or is that an
No,
issue?
they sure do not, Steve. They bring it in with them and they put it on the table. We call them the misfit millionaires. These people, they're all batshit insane. The single common denominator outside of wealth is addiction. Like these are not healed and healthy people. Like these are going a million miles a minute, can't figure out what shoes on what foot, and mint money. And so it's really I babysit adults 1 week a quarter because they're hysterical, man. Some of the trouble they get themselves into, but some of what they create is extraordinary. So the juice
Hmm.
is worth the squeeze there. There's some big egos. And interestingly, it's never the biggest and the loudest that are the most successful. There's a guy in our mastermind. He's been at for 18 months, never said a word. Never said a word, just sat there quietly taking notes. We ended up finding out because somebody forced it out of him. He built this community. He has 10,000 people in this community learning a very specific proficiency that we're all super interested in. He ends up being a world authority in this damn thing and never says a word to anybody because he's shy and he's like, oh, I don't want to step on any toes and I don't know if I'm going to provide any value. So it's never, I'm a good example of this. It's never the loudest person that deserves the microphone. So one of the keys in the mastermind I'm learning, because this is, I'm new to running a mastermind, is really ferreting out the talent.
Yeah.
Your B minus students tend to be the loudest, which is okay because B minus content's not bad.
Yeah.
But the A plus students, you got to really kind of go and you got to seek them out and you got to find them.
Yeah. No, that's that's for sure. That's so interesting. So now, obviously, you're a high energy guy. You've done a lot. You've had great success. How do you, how do you come up with these ideas for the company, and then how do you build the team around it? Do you consider yourself like a leader of this team, of this executive team, or whatever, or are you just the charismatic idea guy and someone else does that?
No, people are my favorite topic. Steve, I own a staffing agency that helps entrepreneurs find executive assistants. I think every entrepreneur needs an executive assistant, and I think that executive assistant ends up being something else. It's an incubator role. And so the way I've been building all of these businesses, I just did it. I own AEO.co. Nobody knows this yet. I'm 2 years early, but SEO is dead. There's been billions and billions and billions of dollars spent on ranking inside of Google. Where guess what's losing market share faster than it ever gained it? Google. To what? ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, etc. So all these LLMs are overtaking Google where people go to ask questions. And if you were to ask a question like, where do I get a nice bottle of wine in Spokane, Washington? And you ask that to ChatGPT, my question for you is, how is ChatGPT ranking that result? Because they're going to give you an answer. It might be a digital answer, or it might be a brick and mortar store, depending on the context of your question. And that ranking is different than Google's ranking. So instead of search engine optimization, SEO, we're building answer engine optimization, AEO. And we've more or less cracked the code on that. There's 3 distinct factors that go to ranking AEO. Here's what's interesting. This is why I bring it up. Super in-depth process. I started with one executive assistant. His name's Julian. He's from Bogota, Colombia. And I just started ideating with him. And obviously I picked the right horse, right? That's one of the things that's really important when you're running a race, is just to make sure that the person's competent. He now runs the entire business from me top to bottom. I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world without knowing how to run Google Ads. I had the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet without ever knowing anything about real estate investing or lead generation at the time. I have the largest English speaking Montessori community in the world, and I'm not a trained Montessori, nor do I own a Montessori school. My goal is to find people. It's Dan Sullivan's Who's the Who. And I think, and this is where I'm maybe going to get in a little trouble, Steve, so we'll try not to get canceled together.
Okay.
Uh, I think the largest opportunity right now for us in the Western world is international talent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The We won, dude. Like I'm related to Thomas Jefferson. I carry a copy of the Constitution in my backpack. Hopefully that's enough lip service. I love this country. And there's something wrong with our labor force at a certain level. All of the peak performers get swallowed up by Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, right? So should they. Or they go work for a startup offering stock options that'll make them $1 million in 3, 4, 5 years. Or they become an entrepreneur, because it's so easy to become an entrepreneur in this country. Anybody left over is exactly that. They're the leftovers. They're not bad people. I have a cousin like this. I love him dearly and deeply. He's one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. He's a 9 to 5er. Clock in, clock out. Work is not his goal. He likes to spend time with his daughters. He likes to play games. He likes to party. He likes to travel. He's not here to crush work. And I feel like that's more or less the entirety of the American labor force that's available to small businesses. So you hear
Mm-hmm.
things like, there's no such thing as good help these days. And if you want something done, do it yourself. My ask of people, most people who outsource, and I don't even like that word, but most people who outsource, they tell me like, oh yeah, I tried outsourcing, it didn't work. But then you dig in and you're like, well, what did you outsource? And you're like, well, I tried to get them to do these 500 lines of data entry a day. Or they needed to make 85 cold calls. Or, you know what I mean? It's like, what human in the world could possibly do that? It would be hubris to think that the rest of the world doesn't produce just as many outstanding successes. And all of our successes are being swallowed up and theirs aren't. So if you go to Latin America, Eastern Europe, North Africa, South Asia, you end up with triple PhD talent for a literal fraction of the price, who looks at you as an aspirational employer. To get a job with a US company is like an American kid going to work for Microsoft or Amazon or Apple. Like, they are thrilled, and you pay in the US dollar, and you let them work a semi-flexible schedule, and you let them work from home, and it has an anthropological significance on the quality of their life. You pay them more than they'd ever make domestically, and all of a sudden you see worlds change, especially in some of these countries where there's no social safety net. The impact that we can have on people's lives it's incalculable. It's impossible for me to articulate. And because you have that impact, you experience something as an employer that you've never experienced before if you've only ever hired domestically, which is gratitude. It's gratitude. So I've built all these
Mm-hmm.
businesses. I hate to say it this way, but it's true. I built all these businesses on the backs of international labor. And when I sold Solutions 8, I had 40% margins in an industry that aims at 15% as a high watermark. Razor thin margins for most of them at 15%. I have 40 because I hired internationally. And I paid them way, 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 way more than anybody was ever willing to pay them domestically, or even people who are outsourcing were willing to pay people in those regions. But what I got, instead of the dregs, let's say, I got the creme de la creme. That's why we call our agency Pareto Talent, because it's the Pareto rule. It's 20% of your input equals 80% of your output. So all these businesses that I build, I'm not, I mean, the number of entities and organizations I currently have, the number of, forgive me for saying it this way, Steve, but money's how we keep score. I have multiple passive six-figure incomes on businesses that I do not touch. Because what I do the ideation. So I'm like, hey, here's traffic, here's opportunity. And then I find the who. And I put the who in place and I make sure their incentives are aligned. And then I let them go. And I promise you, they're smarter, faster, more industrious, more caring, better than I am. And most entrepreneurs do the opposite. They're Napoleon. They're the leader, they're the general, they're the smartest, they're the strongest, they're going to do everything they're going to do. Well, good luck to you. That's a tiring life. You know,
Yeah,
I'd
it is.
rather be the dumbest one in the room. My favorite answer to anything is I don't know. Hey,
Yeah.
Costin, where are the TPS reports? I don't know. How do we invoice this? I don't know. How do I log into that? I don't put me on the org chart. You know, like my job is to find the who, and I will direct you to the who does know.
Yeah, that's amazing. So back to the administrative assistant. So these are overseas people that. So let's say I need an administrative assistant, and I go to your company. So tell me how that transaction works, and who do I have, and what do they do for me? Because, I don't know if you ever watched the TV series Suits, but I've always said, man, if I had Donna as my administrative assistant, I'd take over the world,
Yeah.
type of thing. So how do you find me this administrative assistant, and what does that person do for me as a leader?
I'll say as a preface, I'm not here to sell my agency. We're more expensive than you would pay if you did it yourself, and you can do it yourself. As a matter of fact, I've outlined my entire blueprint top to bottom, and I've held nothing back. Your listeners can have it for free. There's no gate. So they can go to paretotalent.com/hire, and they can download our blueprint for how we hire extraordinary talent without even giving me a name and an email address, which I hope, Steve, reminds you of what we talked about earlier, which is serving the community. That's my give. Give first, give last, give more. And they're going to spend less. They're going to spend less if they do it themselves. I'm the easy button. My personal opinion is you need to hire the top 1% of talent. It takes 1,000 applicants to produce one executive assistant at Pareto. And the reason for that is, especially in a post AI world, output is scaled by all of our digital tools. So, you know, it used to be that you could actually afford a 6 on a 10 scale. I'd call him Jerry, right? You own a graphic design shop, let's say, and most of your graphic designers are really, really good, but you got Jerry there in case there's overflow or something's running late and you need something done. And Jerry's a 6 out of 10 scale, so he's a D student, but at least it gets done, and that's okay because, you know, sometimes we need a little cushion. In an AI world, an automated world, a process-driven world, all your employees are scaled to near infinity. So you just took mediocrity and you scaled it. The problem most entrepreneurs face is they're trying to hire humans like commodities. They want to pay the least and try to get the most out of them. I'd ask you to flip it. Pay the most. Pay 10% more than the high water mark in any market you're entering. I like Latin America for a bunch of reasons. Latin America is more or less on our time zone. English proficiency is generally not a problem. Their accent is accessible to the Western ear. So the Asian and East Asian accent can be frustrating for a demographic of people that are not to be ignored. And I'm allowed to say that my
Mhm.
father's South Asian. But if I put my father on the phone with, you know, one of my Trumper clients, it's an immediate, you're not from around here, are you, boy? But if you hear somebody from Latin America, you're like, oh, that's my neighbor. I know exactly what that sounds like. Technical proficiency is solid. Technical proficiency in Latin America isn't quite as good as it is in Asia, but it's good enough. And there's way more cultural alignment. Generally speaking, we're talking about Christian countries, so you have like alignments in holidays, and they watch the same television and listen to the same music. And so these are people that kind of understand us and we understand them. And those cultural barriers are important because outsourcing requires understanding those cultural nuances. When you're looking for somebody, hold the bar unreasonably high. That's what I tell everybody. Because they come in, one of the first questions I always get on any of my job postings is this a scam? Because I'll put a job posting up and I'll pay 3, 4, 5 times what people are paying for that role in that region. 3 or 4, 5 times what people are paying. And instantly people are like, is this a scam? And I say, no, I'm going to pay you this. And my expectations are unreasonably high. As a matter of fact, I think my expectations are a little higher than that salary. And all that happens is it burns off people like my cousin who just want to clock in, clock out.
Mhm.
And it brings in the people who really want to challenge. And now what you have is a funnel. You're going to get inundated with offers if you do this. So you're going to get, you know, I'll get thousands of applications sometimes, literally thousands of applications. And then what we do is I have what I call fly traps. And this is all in the blueprint that I offered your audience for free. But the fly traps are things like in the job posting, it says To apply, make sure your subject line reads, I actually read the instructions. If the subject line doesn't say that, it's automatically filtered by Zapier. I don't even ever see that email. And it's not me, it's my EA that's reviewing all these things. And then they have to read the instructions. And in the instructions, I'll say things like, make sure to send me a link to your resume in a PDF format with this naming convention. Bunch of little fly traps in there. A link, not an attachment. If I get an attachment, you're out. PDF, not Word. If I get Word, you're out. This naming convention, you screw that up, you're out. Why? You're a remote employee. I cannot afford to watch you, manage you, supervise you. I'm too damn busy. I have too many businesses and too much shit going on. I'm not going to sit here and make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's. So they have to follow all the instructions. When we get to the end of it, anybody who's followed the instructions, and if I like their communication, their formatting, we send them a trial project that's integrally related to the role that I'm hiring for. If I'm hiring for a client manager, the trial project's client management. If I'm hiring for graphic design, the trial project's graphic design. If I'm hiring for sales, the trial project's sales, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the trial projects are hard. So what I do is, let's say you applied for a job. I say, hey, Steve, I've been hiring people for 20 years. I know enough to know that interviews tell me nothing until we work together. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to pay you in advance. I'm going to pay you for 2 hours of your time, and I want you to do this trial project. It's hard. It's going to take you 2 hours, but at the end of it, I'm going to know whether or not we're able to work together. What do you think? If you agree, send me your PayPal information. You send me your PayPal, I send you the money. It ends up being, depending on where you are regionally, 2 hours is $20 to $50. 20 to 50 bucks. Let's say that you have 10 people on your short list and you do that 10 times. That's $500. You think, Kasim, I don't want to spend $500. Here's the brilliance of it. Ready? I send people the money. I don't send them the trial project. And I wait to see who follows up. And if you're willing to ghost me for 50 bucks, I know for a fact I don't want to hire you. Some people will come back a month
Wow.
later saying, hey, didn't you send me money? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And now I know. I'm glad you're not on my slate. When people do the trial project, Steve, if they've gone through all the fly, and I have hundreds of fly traps, I cover it all in my book. When they've gone through the fly traps, they've done the trial project, you've worked with them on communication. I'll do things like schedule meetings with them, especially if they're customer facing. I'll schedule after the trial project, I'll schedule an interview with them and I'll cancel it at the last minute. Hey, sorry, something came up, please reschedule, and see if they rebook. If you're going to be my client manager and you can't deal with rebooking, I don't want to hire you. I've had people cuss me out. If you're going to be my client manager and getting canceled on makes you mad, I don't want to hire you. So you put them through fly traps that are applicable to the role that you're hiring for. You start with thousands of applicants. You end up with a dozen. You shortlist that to 3, 4, 5. You hop on an interview with them. At the interview point, it's a formality. It's who do you like? Whose face can you stand? Who could you be in a room with? And it's not uncommon, Steve, especially because all my businesses scale. It's not uncommon for me to hire 2 or 3 people for one role because I really like group training. It helps people accelerate, it helps them learn better, it builds a community atmosphere. And that's how you find Pareto talent. And those people are extraordinary. They run through walls. My first EA became my director of automations. My second EA became my director of social. My third EA became my CTO, managed my entire 8-month exit, and is now my best friend and my business partner and owns 50% of Pareto Talent. That's the fun full circle moment. I took a 20-year-old kid from Ukraine, he's in his mid-20s. He has a wife and little boy now. And he lives here, by the way. We got him over here on an H-1B visa when Russia attacked Ukraine. He was my EA in Ukraine, making $1,000 a month. Now he's my business partner. He's a millionaire, and he and I are staffing EAs together. That's what these people are capable of. But you have to give them that opportunity. In the Western world, we've convinced ourselves that, oh, outsourcing is grunt work. Just send them the grunt work. No, flip it. Go find your CTO, CFO, COO, director level, manager level. Like those, it's, of course they exist, right? It's like, I know people in Argentina aren't any dumber than us. As a matter of fact, they go through a lot more than we do. We're kind of cushy, like, what is that saying? Hard times create tough people, So like they're going in any country that's going through hard times, they have more grit, more tenacity, more capabilities. And I'm not trying to slander our collective environment. I want to go back to, I love it here. I'm grateful to be here. And we've got some problems. We've got a soft belly. And there's some
Mhm.
people that are available to hire who don't have soft bellies.
Well, it brings up all kinds of ideas around this. I mean, look at our farming community. So let's say that immigration has changed, and let's say it's harder to find a lot of the migrant workers that are immigrants to work in the farming in the U.S. Um, yeah, what happens? I mean, how are you gonna solve that void?
I
It's
think the
crazy.
same problem applies. I have a fear that I don't think is unfounded. I think we're looking at the largest labor collapse in human history. And I believe that so strongly, I don't even want to say I think. Like, that feels pretty obvious to me. Uber and Lyft are the second largest employers in the United States, second only to the US government. And there are more Waymos at the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport than there are Ubers and Lyfts. Waymo is the self-driving car. So that's a job that's already gone. And that job cascades because you don't just think Uber and Lyft drivers, you think delivery drivers, truck drivers, parking lot attendants, road resurfacing, mechanics, gas stations, like all of these peripheral businesses. And that's one category of 100,000 that are being usurped and replaced. I don't think this heralds zombie apocalypse. Instead, I think universal basic income is an a priori prerequisite that will 100% happen in all emerged worlds. I think that we experience massive deflationary events because things are going to become a lot cheaper. So, well, basically, most societies will be in a position to pay people $2,000 a month to stay home and watch Netflix. I wouldn't be surprised, Steve, if we nationalize Netflix. Here's why I bring all this up. I think 80% of people want to be paid to stay home and watch Netflix. And I actually think there's a whole class of human that's going to profit and benefit from this. The artists, the creatives, the writers, the painters, the filmmakers, the people who aren't made to work. They're not you and I. They're beautiful souls, and they've actually been left behind by capitalism, the industrialized world, or whatever term you want to use. So they're going to be great. God bless them. Hopefully, we end up in Star Trek-based utopia. The 20% of people that don't want to be left behind, those are the people that are going to be opened up. So I think the U.S. labor force swings back. I think it's going to be one generation of tough, hard, mud grind grit. But it's the lesson I learned at 20. Man, I've worked 80 hours a week for 20 years because I went broke, and I knew I never wanted to be poor again. And so I think that people don't need a lot. They don't need a lot of impetus to realize that themselves. So I think that our country experiences whatever down regulation of income capability most people have experienced. And right now, I don't care what you say, and I don't care who gets mad at me. It is so easy to make a living. It is so easy to make a living in this country. And that's not going to be true. My cousin, who I referenced earlier, had a job working at GoDaddy for $140,000 a year. He was there for a decade and a half. They just laid him off. The closest offer he got was for 70. He took it. And it's a Steinbeck novel. There's bands and droves of white collar employees roaming, the ether, trying to find something to replace these low six-figure incomes that they had, and they're not going to get them back. So they're going to go into the trades. The low white collar is going to go to the upper end blue collar, and we're going to see a mass rush into the trades, and then hopefully that cascades, and we're actually able to do things like domestic manufacturing, domestic farming, and all those things. But I mean, it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some heartache, and it's going to take some hurt.
Yeah, I just, it's so interesting. I mean, you're such a thought leader here, and I did read in researching for this discussion today that you have a little different take on business partners. A lot of entrepreneurs kind of get stuck with, it's my idea, I know it all. I have to do it, I have to do everything, whatever. But you're just like, no, I need partners, and you delegate freely. And so just tell me your philosophy on creating things with that idea in mind.
Yeah, somebody said to me recently, he said, I'd rather have a piece of a watermelon than a whole grape. And that's all a partnership is. People that look at businesses as like this thing where it's like, oh, I need control and I need to own it. And it's like, good luck with that. Every business I've ever had that's been successful has had a partner. Every business I've ever had that's been wildly successful has actually relied on that partner more than me. I keep saying I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. You know what's funny about that, Steve? What's horrible about me even saying that is my business partner, John Moran. He's the mind behind the Google Ads. He's the one that cracked the code. He's the one that figured it out. He's the magician. He's the one that everybody followed. I owned 90% of the business. He owned 10 because I funded everything. And yet I built an 8-figure business off the guy. Like what a beautiful. We're still good friends. We're actually going into another business today. I got a text message from him yesterday. And now I'm 10% and he's majority owner, So I think that partnerships they're not just helpful, they're necessary. Unless maybe you're Elon Musk and maybe you really are just the brightest person in the whole wide world and you know how to do everything, in which case, God bless you. I envy you. I'm not. There's so much I don't know. I think the best partnerships are split into two. It's traffic and fulfillment. One partner goes and gets the client, one partner fulfills on whatever it is. One partner makes promises, the other partner keeps them. Right. So, and if you're small, that becomes especially true. What most small businesses do, what most people do when they start a partnership is they're both the same. It's like two carpenters get together and like, oh, we're going to start a carpenter shop. And it's like, great. Who's going to get the clients? We don't know. We both just do carpentry. Go
Yes, so true.
find your antithesis. Go find your opposite. Me and none of my partners, maybe with one exception, none of the people I've partnered with would we be friends outside of business. Like we wouldn't hang out. We're not concentric circles. Like there's not a lot of Venn diagram overlap. And that makes those partnerships beautiful because there's no redundancy. Like what they're good at, I could never touch and vice versa.
So what's your gift? If I'm going to go into business with you, what is your gift? What do you bring to this partnership?
Dude, I gotta be honest. I do not know why people go into business with me. I don't know why Perry Belcher gave me a third of Driven Mastermind. I'm like, dude, what do you want me to do? And he's like, just be you. And I'm like, oh, I think I'm really good at people. I think
Oh,
so. We talked about talent acquisition. I think I might be better at talent acquisition than anybody in the world. The reason I don't view that as a gift, though, is because I give people the template, and people who follow my template are like, oh my God, dude, this works. It's like treat people well, incentivize them properly, make sure your incentives are aligned. Don't screenshot desktops or make people clock in and out. Don't ask a grown human to go to the bathroom, or don't ask a grown human to ask you when they need to go to the bathroom. They shouldn't have to email you if they have to take their kid to a dentist. Like be a good place to work, and you're going to find extraordinary people that run through walls for you. I think I'm really good at people. I think I'm really good at connecting the dots. I see the opportunities. Like I saw the AEO thing. I own syndications.com. I see the tokenization opportunity for real estate. Me and a friend own seedoil.com. We see the opportunity because seed oils are about to be, villainized for very, very, very good reason. They're killing the country. So each of these opportunities that I'm seeing, I also index towards action. So maybe that's three that I gave you, Steve. I'm really good at taking action. I'm really good at talent acquisition. I'm really good at connecting the dots.
so I'm intrigued. Where does that come from? Because it's kind of like you said at the very beginning of this interview that you lived in poverty. You didn't have opportunities. You didn't see. Did Are you just somebody that has that innate an ability to just see an opportunity and take it? It's interesting. Where does it come from? Have you thought about that?
No, I love the question. As you asked that, it feels to me like it's something that's been honed over time. I don't feel like I was born with it. I feel like I've had so many at bats. I've had hundreds of at bats. Literally, if I count the number of businesses I've started, it would approach the number 100. That's interesting, Steve. Actually, is I'm actually really not that successful a person. I've had six multi-million-dollar businesses. I've had 94 failures, right? So I don't think me see. Because really what that means is 94% of the time I've been wrong. So my ability to identify opportunities is 94% flawed. And I think more than just the opportunity identification, it's my willingness to fail forward and to iterate.
Hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people have that. I think a lot of people fail once and they're like, I'm never getting back on that
Yeah,
horse.
afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then said a million times, but we learn more from our failures than our successes. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, well, if you failed 94% of the time, then maybe that really helped you get that 6%,
Yeah. That's why I call
going.
myself the world's greatest failure.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, when you anticipated our discussion today, is there anything that I haven't asked you or that we haven't covered that you think we should be sure and get in the show?
My goal in life is to help people in emerging nations find meaningful work. So I'm not here to sell Pareto. We actually have more demand than we have supply. What I would love, though, is if people who listen and watch begin to consider what it might look like if they did hire people in international markets, because I do think that they're not going to be as safe as those of us in the Western world are. They don't have the social safety nets that we have. They don't have Social Security disability. Like my mom, God bless her, went blind, and we had something to rest on, and we were fed and we were housed and we were clothed and we went to horrible school, but we went to school. Like, the country took care of us. There are countries where that doesn't exist. So if you
Yeah.
want to really make an impact and profit at the same time, go to the international markets, follow the blueprint I just gave you. And I don't think you can go wrong there. There will be some growing pains and some learning curves, but man, I think it has such an impact on both sides.
Well, and even in my line of business in healthcare, I do know I have a client who uses their front office, schedulers and whatever are overseas,
Yep.
and he basically says the same thing is that people are so thrilled to be working for an American company that they have that enthusiasm and they never say die attitude that we wish we saw more of in this country sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Hope it
very
comes back.
interesting. Yeah. Well, Kasim, and at this point in the interview, I always ask my client or my guest the same common question, and that question is, in relation to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Love. I know that sounds really sappy, touchy-feely, but man, I think it's so important. I don't think you deserve to serve a customer if you don't really love them and who they are. I don't think you deserve to serve an industry and niche. And I don't think you deserve to employ people if you don't really love them. In love, Jordan Peterson says, love is the desire that all things flourish. So I don't mean it doesn't have to be weird. It doesn't even have to be a religious archetype. It just has to be you need to deeply want people to succeed. And if there's somebody that you don't want to succeed, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That probably means it's not a very productive relationship. Get rid of them. I'm
Mhm.
I'm ruthless when it comes to that. I'm like, if you're not working here, we're done. But if you're working here and we're working together, God, do I want you to win. And I think when people lead with love, man, and the leaders that do it, you see it, people will die for them. They'll
Yeah.
take bullets for them.
Well, people recognize that. They feel it, they see it, and yeah, it's show them you care, and you're going to get a better result, I think. So what's in the future? You got so many ideas going around that head, I can just imagine. So you just keep doing what you're doing, or you got some big ideas coming forward. You've written 3 books. You got more books on the way. What's going
Yeah,
on?
my book Hire is being published. Actually, that's the one that I'm giving away. I've got another book on delegation. I've got another book on AEO. I didn't write that. I'm just putting my name on it because I'm a narcissist, apparently. That's a good example. Julian wrote that, my EA, and I made some edits, so I get a scribe or a script. I have an incubator. I have too many ideas that I can possibly take advantage of. So now I'm trying to teach other people ideas, like how to build these businesses and where I would start going. Um, and we'll see how well that works, Steve. But I'm a little overwhelmed, might be the right word. I've started too many things now.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Well, thanks so much for your time today. Fascinating discussion. I mean, I knew coming into this in preparing that it was gonna be hard for me to keep up with you, but hopefully I did well enough to get some good stuff out of you, and it was fascinating. So thanks for being on the show today, and I really appreciate your time.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, and everybody, thanks for listening.
Take care. Have a good rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see each other down the road someday. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.